Great, thank you. First, it's a pleasure to be here. I've known Peter for quite a while. He was covering stories for the criminal beat back when I started as a prosecutor here, and I've known Margot for quite a while as well. Let me start by saying that a little bit of background. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida originally. I did my undergrad work at Troy State, Troy, Alabama with a criminal justice degree. Graduated in 1980. Then went to work for the Florida Department of Corrections. Worked for them for 13 years as a probation officer. 10 of that 13 years, the last 10 was here in St. Johns County. To give you a perspective, that was back when the courthouse was now what is the Casa Monica Hotel. And Francis O'Laughlin was the sheriff at that point in time. In any event, I started working probation and parole, and I handled youthful offenders, sex offenders. I handled the community control or house arrest caseload, plus general caseloads, until my promotion. I believe in 1990, I was promoted to a supervisor. And in 93, I talked to my wife, Trish, and I said, honey, I'm quitting my job, and you and me and the kids were heading up to Macon, Georgia. So we went up to Mercer University in Macon, Georgia, and went to law school. And I look at it that way. We literally all went up there to law school. I was the actual student, but the whole family shared in it. It was quite exhilarating, a little bit scary. It was risky, but we did it. We went up there, had an absolutely wonderful experience, met some great people, worked as a clerk at the DA's office in Houston County, Perry, Georgia. Then came back to St. Johns County and prosecuted in St. Johns County for a little over 6 years, 6.5 years. 64, 65 jury trials, almost all of those felony jury trials, did a death penalty case, home invasions, robberies, murders, a lot of child molestations and sexual batteries. I handled a lot of serious felonies in my trial work. Then I went into private practice for 6 years, in 2003 to 2008, and I also ran for state attorney in 2008. I was elected in 08, took over in 09. And I've been your elected state attorney ever since. As far as what's been happening at the state attorney's office, I'm proud of the record we've established. And I say we, I want to stress we. While I'm the leader and the CEO of the organization, which by the way is the largest law firm in the 7th Circuit, the people that I work with, they make it happen. I provide some leadership, inspiration, motivation, and an environment that allows them to excel and to grow. We have the highest conviction rate now, as determined by the Florida Supreme Court, 2011, in the history, the recorded history of the 7th Circuit State Attorney's Office, 89.8%. When I took over in 2009, the conviction rate was 82%. That was below the state average. The state average is currently 86%. We filed over 10,000, almost 10,200, I believe, felony charges in 2011. That's the most felonies charged in the recorded history of the 7th Circuit State Attorney's Office as well.
In the 7th Circuit.
In the 7th Circuit. Now, the statistics I'm quoting you can look up very easily. You go to the Florida Supreme Court website, and then you go to the public reports, and you go by circuit criminal reports, and it outlines all 20 state attorneys' offices throughout the state, or 20 state attorneys are subject to the same statistical analysis. So you can look up the statistics for all 20 circuits. I was comparing our circuit to what had done in the past and also to the state. And as I said, we're at 89.8%, which is above the 86% average statewide currently, or as of 2011. You might know, I'm sure y'all do, that the budget situation, the economy hit Florida very hard. Or the recession, the Great Recession, whatever you want to call it. People have a lot of colorful names for it.
Call it lots of things.
Right, I think we all do. But I inherited a budget scenario that was spiraling down. I've talked to folks that have been in the office 30 plus years and they've never seen the budget spiral down like it did when I took office. The good news was I didn't know any bit different. I mean, when I took over, the budget was going down. We've lost about $2 million, maybe a little bit more than that, over the course of the 3.5 years I've been state attorney. Now, that's starting out with a $14 million budget. So you're talking a pretty good percentage being taken out from underneath.
2 or 3 million?
2 million. Two and some change.
Right.
Now, 95% of the state attorney's office budget is salaries. So when you lose that kind of money, it's going to affect your salaries or affect your employees. I'm proud to say we've had no furloughs, no layoffs. We've been able to continue with an operational level of staff that I believe enhances and is conducive to keeping our public safety levels where they should be. But it's been a challenge. What I've done, I didn't go to the legislature and hold my hand out and say, you got to give me more money, because I knew it wasn't going to happen. What I did was I increased the collection of cost of prosecution fees that are statutorily mandated by the legislature. They're $50 per case in misdemeanor cases. That's where you get most of your cost of prosecution dollars. We've increased that by 48% since I took office. And what does that mean? It means we collect $1 million plus a year from the offenders who actually create the costs. And I'm proud to say that money has supplemented us and allowed us to maintain our level of staffing. A prime example would be this month. This is the end of the fiscal year, June. The entire payroll for the state attorney's office, 7th Circuit, will be paid by those trust fund dollars and dollars that we've been able to save from our operational expenditures and due process costs. So we're doing more with less. We're not asking for money. Now, of course, in the long term, I'd like to be able to get some money to expand some programs that we're doing. But I'm proud of how we've handled this budget crisis. I think and especially in my first term. So, that's something we've all pulled together and done. We have a career criminal special prosecution unit where we identify the most dangerous and violent felony offenders that pose the largest threat to our public safety. And we do that on the front end so that we can identify them and then channel our resources for those folks to make sure that they get the proper resolution. For example, if we have a repeat offender that's a prison releasee reoffender, habitual offender, we can actually identify them and seek enhanced penalties through the process. And that helps us to channel and focus the resources at the state attorney's office where they need to be channeled and focused. That's somewhat of an overview of where we're at with the office, and be happy to respond to any specific questions you might have.
You want us to begin? You want me to begin?
Yeah, please.
Please me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Couple questions. No furloughs, no layoffs. In spite of the $2 million reduction on 14, that's a good percentage. That's pretty strong.
Yes, sir.
How about the other circuits? Did the other circuits in the state go through a furlough layoff process?
Some, I can't speak. I don't know if any of them did. Some were talking about it. Every circuit was affected by the budget reductions, some more than others. Mm-hmm. But I truly don't know if any of the other circuits actually had to do furloughs or layoffs.
Yeah, that was one of my notes. And you increased let me see if I get this. I thought that's pretty cool. Pick up $1 million in prosecution fees or cost of prosecution fees.
Yes, sir.
So did you increase the rate by 48%, or is it a combination of collections and rating?
All collections. What happens is, while it's statutorily mandated, just because the law is on the books doesn't always mean that the judges are ordering it in every case. So what we did was we went to the judges circuit-wide. We explained our situation to them. We said, look, this money is statutorily mandated, and we need you to make sure you order it in all of your misdemeanor cases. And the judges were very receptive. They certainly want the prosecutors in the courtrooms. And for example, we collected over $100,000 in May, circuit-wide. And that's Volusia, Putnam, Flagler, and St. Johns County. And it's not an increase in the rate at all. It's just an increase in collection. Yes, sir. So like I said, I think to me, that's an example of working with the system and working with the other players in the system to help make the system be successful.
Cool. You mentioned the programs in the career criminal prosecution unit.
Yes,
is
sir.
that something new under your tenure?
Well, yes and no. There's always been habitual felony offenders, career criminals, violent career criminals, racketeering, prison releasee reoffender, sexual predators. All of those things, those laws exist. What I did was put a process in place that emphasized that we need to identify these folks at the front end so that we can use it for a tool in either getting a disposition, or if we go to trial, to make sure that if their sentence needs to be doubled, or if they need to spend minimum mandatory terms, like in your 10-20 life situations, that we do that.
Cool. Let me ask a question about something that's, in fact, is in our paper today. It's been in the news of late, and it's the 10-20 life issue. And I know you don't make the laws, or it's a legislative issue as much as anything, but could you speak to that?
I sure can. The 10-20 life law was, I think the policy behind that was with gun violence. It addresses gun violence, and if you have a gun during the course of a felony, there's enumerated felonies. I don't remember all of them, but some, like possession of firearm by a convicted felon, it doesn't apply. Right. But most it does to the enumerated felonies in the law. 10 years minimum. Like, for example, if you walk into you rob somebody, you got a gun, that's 10 years minimum. If you pull the gun, it's 20. And if you fire the weapon, it's 25 to life. I believe in the policy behind it. There needs to be, I think, and this is what we try to do, some common sense and some discretion in how you use it.
Or how you file the charge.
Right. Well, that's what I mean, because sometimes we had a situation once in Putnam County. I think I might have been a defense attorney at the time, where a bondsman shot at somebody who was trying to get away from him, trying to capture him on the bond. Shot him in the buttocks, in the rear end. It wasn't life-threatening, etc., but the 10-20 life law kicked in. Because of the way it was charged, that the bondsman would not plea to something lesser. And so he got convicted, and he's going to prison for 25 to life. No record, no issues in the past, but a situation where a poor judgment ended up with a very drastic result. So I believe that the prosecutors and the office needs to be fair. And when a law can have a result that might not have been intended by the legislature, or a result that might be a bit too far, then we need to look at that. The problem is, who decides when that's too far or when it's inappropriate? That's one of the problems that we run into with the state attorney's office. Is if I ask the three of you in here what should happen to a certain person under a certain set of facts, I'd probably get three different answers. Three judges could rule differently. Peter's noticed that in the courtroom. So we're in the business of trying to make justice a reality. So what we do is try to use common sense. I try to empower the prosecutors with the 10-20 life law to look at the person's record, look at the circumstances, what does the victim want, what does law enforcement say about it, and put all that together so that we can come up with a resolution that's reasonable and justifiable. That's the way I look at it.
Cool. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You had mentioned, I'm going to go back to no furloughs, no layoffs, yet 2 million. And I believe there was a person who initially said they were going to run because of the morale in the office.
Yes,
they
sir.
felt were bad, and then withdrew from the race. Could you talk about the morale issues in the Volusia office? I mean, do you see it that way? Obviously they did, but I'm curious as to your view of how you've managed that and that charge.
Yes, sir. Well, first off, if pervasively morale is poor, you wouldn't expect the kind of production or the kind of numbers or the kind of, what we're doing in the office. The highest conviction rate in the recorded history of the 7th Circuit, charging more crimes, dropping less. The crime rate's down. First off, statistics aren't everything, but they do provide a picture into what's going on. So first I would say if morale was as bad as the opponent who dropped out of the race and my current opponent as well as indicated, I don't think you'd be seeing the kind of results we're getting at the state attorney's office. That's number one. Number two, look, we got 220 employees. 85 of those are lawyers. 21 are investigators. We've got support staff, paralegals, victim advocates, fiscal management. IT department and a litigation support department. I am not naive enough to think that all 220 employees are going to be happy all the time. And there's always going to be folks that are not happy. And I try to provide an environment where people believe that it's fair. For example, I've instituted a merit-based performance evaluation process that applies to all employees. That means that we do performance evaluations every year, and that is one of the big considerations in promotions and in salary increases when we can do them. So not only am I trying to inspire when I can and motivate folks by creating an environment that's happy, I'm trying to reward the folks that deserve to be rewarded. Little things like we have a Friday casual day. When I came in and said we could do on Fridays, if you didn't have to be in court, you could dress down a little bit, it was amazing how that helped morale. So, you look for little things you can do as well. I can tell you that morale will never be perfect in any business that I've ever dealt with, and I suspect in any business period. But we care about our employees. We try to put practices in place that recognize and reward them. And I don't think that this morale issue is near as bad as what my opponents are making it out to be.
Cool. Let's talk a minute, if you don't mind. And one of the things I wasn't aware that the number of charges were up, and being above the state average on convictions.
Yes, sir.
And what do you attribute that to? Because obviously the question in my mind is, wow, maybe you just don't file as many charges. But you're telling me maybe you cherry pick the charges, so conviction rates can go up.
Yes,
but you're
sir.
telling me that the number of charges are up and the number of dismissals are down.
Yes, sir.
So
I am, absolutely. Well, we have stressed to the prosecutors that they need to do the right thing. Now, how do you teach somebody to do the right thing? I haven't found the book yet, except some people would say the Bible might be that book, but I haven't found the book I can give to the prosecutors that says, in this situation, this is the right thing to do. So we try to empower them. I trust them to do the job. I tell them that they're responsible and they're accountable for it. We have trainings. We've done 35 trainings throughout the circuit, some with law enforcement, some just in-house, that are formal trainings during my tenure as state attorney. We've also we have staffings where we get the attorneys together with each other in the different offices, and they talk to each other about their cases, and they try to help each other in determining how to handle a particular case. Because I'll tell you something, a lot of the situations that come up in the state attorney's office are stranger than fiction. We just prosecuted somebody, got a conviction in Putnam County last night on a man, Mr. Mahood, who set his wife on fire. She didn't die, but set his wife on fire, and she and her son testified in that trial. I mean, we deal with some very traumatic, very disturbing types of situations. So I can't make all those decisions. I didn't tell you, but an interesting statistic, we got a public records request which required us to see how many cases had we closed in 2010 and 2011. Now, closed out cases could be cases that are a couple years old. They could be Jimmy Rice Act cases, VOPs, a lot of different things, and not necessarily what we filed on that year. Over 140,000 cases were closed in a 2-year period. Now, those decisions are made by the lawyers primarily. I can't make all those decisions. I can't even make 1% of those decisions when you get right down to it. So we have to empower them and we have to teach them. So what I try to do is give them a good work ethic. We monitor what they do with file reviews and with performance evaluations. And when they make a mistake, we realize they didn't wake up that morning and say, I'm going to go out and make a mistake today on this case and really mess it up. It was an honest mistake. We learned from it. And we reward them when they do well. I think that accounts a lot for the improvement you're seeing in the conviction rate. And I think it also accounts for the fact that we're truly trying to take something negative, like it could be a homicide, it could be a robbery, it could be a molestation or a sexual battery, and pluck justice out of that, make something positive come out of it. The people that work in the office love the ability to be able to do that, and they have the opportunity to do that each and every day.
Cool.
I have no prepared questions.
I have, I want to go back to explaining again the cost of operating the office. Was all you were able to fund that with trust funds and fees and stuff like that?
We get general revenue dollars.
Right.
As part, we do our LBRs, or legislative budget requests, every year, and we talk to our Senator Thrasher and the other senators, etc., and the people on appropriations, and so we get an appropriation every year, and that appropriation from '08 until now has dropped by about $2 million, give or take, maybe a little more. To make that up, because the GR money is what we're supposed to operate on. But we also get trust fund money from that cost of prosecution, and we have a worthless check program, and when we handle those diversions, we get a processing fee, and we charge, this is a small number we get, but it's for discovery. When private attorneys ask for discovery materials, we charge them, I think it's 15 cents a page or something. Plus, although this has never materialized as much money as was promised, or expected, I should say, the tickets, the speeding tickets, etc. Some of that money comes to the state attorney's office, but it's hit or miss. The point I was trying to make was the cost of prosecution is truly where we get the bulk of the money to make up that difference. And some people have called it cash register justice. People are paying to get out of a crime. Nothing could be further from the truth. First off, most of that money comes from misdemeanor cases. DUIs, batteries, no valid driver's license, petty thefts. Those folks will pay the fine because they get off probation when they pay it. So there's an incentive for them to do it. And they were going to get probation anyway. The felonies, we get very little. It's $100, but we get very little cost of prosecution money from the felonies, and that's because those folks can't afford to pay.
They have the money.
They don't have the money. The misdemeanor folks do. So that's a way to help fund the program, and our payroll will be literally paid by trust fund dollars. And again, we save some money on our operational costs and due process costs, and we can use some of that money to help as well. Did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
just a little more elaboration. That's
Yes,
good.
ma'am.
The other question is, being a journalist, where do you rate sunshine law prosecutions?
Well, we statutorily, it says that if there's a sunshine law violation, that the state attorney's office investigates and prosecutes it. And they're important. Sunshine law violations are important because it's about government and transparency and what the government's doing, the decision-making process, etc. We've had some trainings. I think you've participated, Margot, for 2 years with us. Yes, Mr. Davidson as well. I'm not sure about Peter, but
Great program.
we're important. We do that. We do that circuit wide. A lot of allegations of sunshine law violations we handle very quietly, and I'll tell you why. Because we get people calling and alleging something. Sometimes there's a political motivation to it, and before we go into accusing somebody or investigating, because once the state attorney's office is investigating so and so, then the cat's out of the bag, and that damage is already done. We've had people allege that commissioners, etc., from different areas in the circuit have violated it. We've investigated it, and if we found something there, we deal with it. Typically, we find that it's not a violation, and we found that most folks are in compliance, and the ones that aren't don't intentionally violate it. Y'all may recall the big Burt Fish Hospital Memorial Board incident. I was in the middle of that, in the sense that we investigated the board of Burt Fish when they were doing their due diligence on determining whether or not to merge with Florida Hospital or Halifax or another one. And the attorney for the Birdfish Board actually advised the board to go dark. He told them that that this was not required to be in the sunshine. And so we found there was a violation, but not criminal. That's another thing about the Sunshine Law violations. If it's unintentional, it's not criminal.
Right.
If it's intentional, then it is criminal. Now, some folks criticized us for not charging the board members with a misdemeanor, but I didn't, and the staff. We staffed this case with our special prosecution unit, etc. We didn't believe we could prove an intentional violation. The lawyer said, I told them to do it. And I think there's been a multi-million-dollar malpractice settlement with that law firm and Birdfish Memorial. So I think that indicates as well that they accepted responsibility for a faulty or for malpractice in the way they advised them. But if we find deliberate Sunshine Law violations, we'll do the appropriate thing with them. It's just a matter of dealing with them when they come up.
Okay. And of course, we all know the law is there for everybody, not just journalists. So,
Yes, ma'am.
But we're the ones that probably call them often than not.
Yes, ma'am. And here's the thing. This is what I tell the prosecutors, and this is a creed that I try to live by. I do live by as your state attorney. We can't make decisions based on how it might be printed in the newspaper or played on the TV or on the radio, or what's not or is popular. You folks may remember that terrible accident with the boat in Palm Valley that when I hadn't been state attorney very long. Gut-wrenching, terrible accident case that we looked at it from 10 ways to Sunday, trying to figure out, was there a crime? Should we prosecute someone? And the woman who was operating the boat was sober. She was literally may have been the only sober person in that boat. But it was dark, that barge was sticking out, and she ran right into it. And some folks wanted us to prosecute the owner of the boat because he was in the boat and let her operate it. But he was not operating the boat, and the way we read the law, that we couldn't prosecute him under the law. Now, some folks didn't like that decision, but we believed it was the right decision under the facts and the law. And you got to have a state attorney who's prepared to deal with that, because I'm sure some unpopular decisions that have been made by my office or your office will come back during this campaign cycle. People will try to use them as a stick to beat up on the state attorney's office, but I'm proud of the decisions we made, and I get up in the morning, I don't have a problem looking in the mirror based on what we've done.
I do have a question about the campaign.
Yes,
what
sir.
are you doing toward the campaign? Are you speaking to groups? Are you just doing your job?
Well, there's a lot of forums that are going on and things like this, so I try to get to most, if not all of them. It's a 4-county race. So, for example, on one day coming up, I've got 3 or 4 events all scheduled at the same time. In fact, that reminds me, tomorrow I have a fundraiser set up when you've got your open house. So I'm not going to be able to be here for that.
We'll miss you.
I'll miss you too. I'd like to be there. I'm going to try to get somebody there if I can. But there's all kinds of forums, candidate forums. There's speaking engagements. I'm going to be on the radio with Mark Bernier in Volusia County in July. The bar associations, the chambers are putting on things. And so you go to those, but I got an office to run too. I've got good folks to do it, and they're prepared to take care of it and do it. But I still am involved in the operations of the office. I can't disassociate myself totally from that while I'm running, although it makes for long days sometimes. It does.
Mm-hmm. I'll bet. Let me go back to the programs. We talked about the career criminal identification and prosecution unit.
Yes, sir.
And you mentioned programs, and then one of your top 3 goals is to develop and refine initiatives aimed at enhancing your overall conviction rate. Are there other programs and initiatives that you'd like to talk about?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There are. One, we're going paperless. We,
I saw that.
I had initiated. I didn't realize what you got to do infrastructure-wise in order to have the capability to be paperless. You know, I call it plumbing. Basically, our pipes or our bandwidth was about this big, and it needed to be this big, and that cost money. So we had to find a way to save money because I don't know if you know this, but our technology and communication budgets come from the counties. We don't get that money from the state of Florida. The counties provide us with our telephones, our telephone systems, our space, our office space, our technology and hardware for our computers, etc. They provide all that. So we found ways to save money. For example, we switched carriers with our phone system, our handheld or our cell phones, and save some money there, etc. And put money into bandwidth for one. We put money in virtual servers that could handle what we need to do, and we started we've actually hooked up with the Daytona Beach Police Department. We're going to hook up with the St. Johns County Sheriff, all 4 sheriff's offices eventually, so we can communicate and share our information electronically. Let them look at our database to see where our cases are. We can pull our stuff that we need from their database. That's going to do several things to help make us more effective. It'll let the secretaries be more involved, or the paralegals more involved in the courtroom and with the attorneys. It will allow for us to have a quicker and more efficient exchange of information with the law enforcement agencies, the public defenders, and the defense attorneys. And it will allow us also, we will have the ability to evaluate that data that's coming in electronically to see how folks are performing. For example, how many cases is a prosecutor dropping versus how many are they filing? What kind of pleas are they getting? Are they reducing the charges? Are they increasing the charges? Are they filing habitual felony offender? Having that information all electronic, all you need is a real sharpshooter that can write those reports in that software, and you can pull that data. And so it's an evaluation tool eventually. And I think that'll help us. I'd like to expand the career criminal special prosecution unit to have more people in it and to have more resources in it. And I'd like to give folks some raises. You know, the state attorney's office is a stopping ground. It's not necessarily home to a lot of folks. They come there to get experience, to make a name, and then they move on. It's just the way it's always been. But I'm trying to make it more attractive for people to stay so that they will keep more people that have that promise and that ability to be true superstars. So we want, hopefully at some point to be able to do better with our salaries and give people more money. There's a familial DNA software initiative that I'm supporting. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that, but Florida has the second largest DNA database in the country. There's only one state has a bigger one. I bet y'all can guess which one that is. California. So we run, let's say we pull some DNA from a murder scene. It's an unknown. We don't know who it belongs to. We run it through our CODIS, through our database, our state database and the federal database, see if we get a hit. We don't. With familial DNA software, you can run that to see if you get a hit on a potential family member. In other words, that person may not be in the database, but their family member may be in. California's used it, Virginia's used it, Texas used it. They solved some really nasty serial murder type cases and serial rapist cases because they had DNA, but they could never match it up. They called it the Grim Sleeper case, I think, in California. That guy was raping, it was dozens, I think, of women. And when they caught him because it was either his father or his son was in the database. And it pointed them in the direction. Now, you don't prosecute the family member. All it does is give law enforcement the ability to potentially identify who that sample belongs to. So I'm supportive of it. The FDLE has purchased the software, and I'm trying to see if we can't make that a reality in the state of Florida. I'm hoping it'll be a reality soon. That'll help us and law enforcement to solve crimes. Daytona Beach has what they're calling a serial rapist murderer. That several prostitutes have been murdered in Daytona, and you got DNA and ballistics linking at least 4 of them together. But the DNA that we've got, there's no match for it. Maybe with the familial DNA software, we might find some.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some additional things that I'm
Okay,
looking for.
Shelley.
I'll ask one more, and then I think you've answered all my questions. So, looking back over the last 3 years or so, what are you most proud of?
Gosh, that's a tough question, because I'm proud of the folks that I work with. First and foremost, I'm proud because they get up every day. They come into work. They're not making big bucks. A lot of these folks will work late. They'll work the weekends to get their cases ready. I was in my office late one Friday afternoon, and there were two young boys. One was probably 11, the other was around 9, and they were in the we have a little cafeteria area in Daytona, and they were sitting there playing cards or something. And I knew why they were there. They were waiting to talk to the prosecutor who was preparing for a trial, and they were both victims. And so I brought them in my office. I showed them, my view, and let them sit around the conference table. And then the prosecutor came and got them. And I say that because that's how special it is to be working at the state attorney's office. You get a chance to help these folks that have been victimized. You get a chance to make a difference in their lives. And the people that do it, they do it because they're more of a junkie for that fulfillment they get from helping folks and making things right than from making, major bucks. And so that's probably, for me, what I'm most proud of is the folks that get in there. What did Teddy Roosevelt say? It belongs to the folks in the arena, the folks that actually get in there and fight. I have it in my office. That I give every new
man in the arena.
Every prosecutor that comes on board with us gets that framed as a gift from the state attorney's office. All I ask that they do is hang it on the wall and read it from time to time. Yes, sir.
I've got it in my office, absolutely.
But there's so many other things. I'm proud of how we've handled the budget. I'm proud of how we've improved the operation. But mostly I'm just proud of the folks I work with. They're the ones that really make it happen.
Margo, Pete? You get, like I say, you get the last word in a room that it's hard to get the last word. So anything you'd like to elaborate on or say or repeat, you're welcome to do so.
Well, I suppose I'd just like to say that being state attorney is a privilege, it's an honor, and it's a challenge. And what I would ask folks to remember, when, with all due respect to the media, the radio, the TV, the newspaper, nobody knows these cases better than the prosecutors. Nobody knows what the witnesses are saying, what the victim is saying, and what's in the police reports, what the lab reports are, and lab results, etc., are better than the prosecutors. And it's easy to second guess sometimes some of the things, some of the decisions, some of the prosecutions, some of the outcomes are just, that are made. But remember, these folks are working hard. They care about what they're doing. They're in a position to know it better than anyone else. Now, sometimes mistakes are made. We're not perfect. We've had our ups and downs, and we don't shy away or try to sweep anything under the rug if something wasn't done the way it should have been done. But any mistakes that were made, we learn from them and we move on and we try to improve upon it. And if some folks that aren't cut out to be prosecutors, they leave. The ones that really like it and really want to do it, they stick around, and we do our best to make sure that they have the best environment to work and to grow. And I think that's very important.